Biophilic design is one of the biggest interior design trends of 2026. But here's the part that most people never hear. Biophilic design has far less to do with plans and far more to do with psychology. It's about using the patterns, shapes, textures, and spatial principles of nature to create a calmer, healthier, and a more human environment indoors. Now, this is especially important if you're living in a new build like myself, or any other white box that's feeling a little bit sterile. Hi, I'm Ash Person, and this is The Personal Edit. Around here, we use design psychology to turn our new builds into the warm, cozy, inviting homes that we thought we were moving into. Today, I'm giving you my 5-step framework to help you get all of the design psychology benefits of biophilic design without having to own a single plant. And stick around till the end, because step number 4 is one of those foundational secret weapons that designers use all the time but don't talk about. So let's start with something that nature does better than anybody else, and it's also the easiest to repeat with the biggest impact. Step 1. Repetition. Nature's blueprint for calm. Now, repetition is one of those design elements that you've probably heard of. Repeat color, texture, pattern. It's kind of design 101, but nature actually wrote that playbook. Think about it. In nature, we're constantly surrounded by repeating forms. Leaf veins, tree branches, seashell swirls, wave patterns, sand ripples. These patterns are not random. They create predictable visual rhythms, which our brains interpret as safe and familiar. Your brain relaxes when it can anticipate what's coming next. That's why repeated elements feel orderly and not chaotic. To apply this to your space, think about things that you love. Maybe you have a curve in your sofa that you really enjoy. Try repeating that in art on your wall, maybe in a mirror, maybe the rug, or even a coffee table if you're feeling adventurous. Perhaps you have a side table with long, slender legs that you love. Maybe add some really tall candle holders to your space, or a vase. Or maybe your favorite pillow has a color palette that you absolutely love. Repeat that color in other areas of your space. Now, be careful that not everything in your room matches. When it gets really matchy-matchy, you're leaning more furniture showroom than a curated personal home. As in nature, there's repetition, but there's also variety and tension. That's what makes this whole thing work. So when in doubt, use the rule of 3. Repeat a design element 3 times in your room, but watch out when you're repeating color. Please don't repeat the same color 3 times. You must utilize a few other tricks from nature to get this just right. Step 2. Nature's color palette, the most reliable design system on Earth. Now, nature's palettes are inherently balanced. So when you borrow color palettes from nature, you instantly get harmony. But one thing you won't get is one tint, tone, and shade. While every landscape on Earth has a coordinated palette, it's also dynamic. When you think of a desert landscape, you may just think sand. But actually, deserts have a cohesive mix of terracotta, ochre, sand, and even a bit of blue. Forests, they aren't just green and brown. They're an array of forest green to sage green to a muddy brown to a chocolate brown. And it's this variation in tint, tone, and shade of these colors that really make the color palette feel harmonious and elevated. You don't need to incorporate every color of the rainbow into your room, unless that's your thing, which you do you, but that's a different video entirely. But rather, biophilic design really shows us the power of restraint. How we can work within a really tight color palette and our rooms still feel designed, curated, and cozy. And who doesn't love removing one of the millions of choices that we need to make when designing our rooms? So how do you do this in your own home? Pick a landscape that you love and pull your colors from there. If you like a beach, think creams, soft blues, and driftwood grays. Maybe forest is more your vibe, so greens, browns, and mossy tones. The outback? Ochres, rusts, and deep chocolates. Even a stormy coast, slate, navy, taupe, and soft whites. Color palette is the foundation to warm up our new builds. But color alone cannot provide that cozy, lived-in space that we crave. This next tip from nature truly is a design game changer. Step 3. Texture, the sensory layer that makes everything feel alive. Nature is overwhelmingly multi-textured. Rough bark, smooth stone, prickly grasses, reflective waters, rainy soils. Our brains evolved in that world. That's why our flat, white, uniform, builder-grade walls feel artificial and unengaging. And sadly, just adding color to those flat surfaces won't fix the problem. What your home really needs is textual contrast, something to stimulate both the tactile and visual senses. Texture is what makes your space feel lived in, cozy, and human. And that is exactly why most new builds really struggle to evoke those emotions in the beginning. If you're in the beginning stages of your new build or a reno, now is the perfect time to be really intentional about the materials that you're using in your design. And they don't have to be expensive. A lot of the texture we brought into our home through our materials were part of the included options. Our kitchen backsplash, for example, is just a white subway tile. But we found an included option that was a bit more textural, a bit more handmade. We did lay it in a herringbone style, that was extra, to add a bit more pattern and dimensions to that already handmade tile. But we did the same thing with our cabinetry using an included option. Now, would I have loved solid walnut cabinetry? Absolutely. Could I afford it? Absolutely not. So we found the laminate option that was included in our package to still give us that textured feel within our budget. And please do not feel bad about using materials that fit your budget. A lot of design channels will tell you to use, I guess including mine, will tell you to use materials like naturally, right? The woods, the linens, all those things. And I would love to have those in my home too, but I can't quite get there, so I'm gonna fake it till I make it. And you shouldn't feel bad about that either. We deserve to have beautiful homes, even if we don't have $1 million budgets. And honestly, that fake walnut wood cabinetry is the only thing giving my bathroom any sort of warmth at the moment. And now, if your build is already finished, don't stress. It's actually easier to bring in these textural elements through your decor and furniture. So as I was just saying, look for those materials that are like the cottons and the wools and the linens, the stones, all those kinds of things. Anything natural will already have a bit of that textural element that will help elevate your space. And again, you don't have to do this really expensive. Go to thrift stores. That's all the rage at the moment. I'm literally obsessed with thrift store shopping and finding all kinds of really great options there that I can either upcycle or even just use as is. So that's always an option. Look for hand-me-downs. One of my other videos, I recommend shopping grandma's house. So all of those options, you can be thrifty, Facebook Marketplace, that kind of thing. But hey, if your budget allows, go to Pottery Barn, feel free. But I tend to think that thrift store finds or hand-me-down finds, not only are they easier on your budget, but they also have a bit of a story. And here's how to use texture intentionally in your space. Mix matte, rough, and reflective surfaces. Blend all those natural fibers together, the woods, the linens, the cottons, the jutes. Add those handmade pieces that you find at the thrift store, handmade pottery, or anything with a bit of a patina and a story behind it. Even a throw blanket works great. I actually just thrifted a blanket for like $5 from the thrift store that my husband kind of hates, but here we are. Anyway, I think it's adding a bunch of color and texture that we really needed in our living room, which is looking pretty sad at the moment. But here's the real challenge. Even with all of the texture, something can still feel off. So what actually shapes the emotional tone of your space? Step 4, perspective and spatial depth. Designing for mood. Nature uses scale and perspective to affect mood. Dense forests create intimacy and coziness, while open fields encourage calm and expansion. Our nervous system reacts differently, whether a space feels enclosed or open. And it is pretty incredible that we can influence emotional responses by simply changing the way we arrange our furniture in a room. So when designing any space, think about how you want that room to feel. Do you want it open, airy, and inviting? Or perhaps you maybe want it to feel a bit more cozy and relaxing? How you want the room to feel is going to dictate the design decisions that you make for your space. For example, like in most new builds, I have a giant kitchen, living room, dining room, open situation. Now I want the kitchen side of that room to feel open, inviting, airy. It's where I want people to come to hang out. But in the living room side, I want to be able to feel cozy and calm and enclosed when I'm sitting down at night to watch TV. So the challenge becomes, how do you create both of those moods in the same big open space? So to create that welcoming, warm vibe in the kitchen, I painted my cabinets navy. Now, design principles would tell you that using that dark color will enclose the space, not make it feel open and airy, but we actually have massive windows in that room as well. So if anything, it actually just adds a bit of warmth that's inviting into that space versus closing it off. So this moody design decision, I think, is proof that design principles and rules were actually made to be broken, and you should design a house that works for you. Now, we did balance that one unconventional design choice, which isn't really that unconventional. People are painting cabinets dark all the time. But anyway, we did balance that decision with some of the more conventional choices. So we went with light countertops. We have smaller pendants over our kitchen island so it maintains sight lines. We also used a reflective material on those pendants, so they're reflective, but you can also see through them. It's like a ribbed glass kind of idea. I also added a giant piece of art to the dining room wall that has some glass on it, which again may be controversial, but it actually reflects the light from the windows during the day. So we have a really beautiful mountain view. So I get to see the mountains during the day when my windows are open, and then at night I get to see the beautiful artwork. So it kind of almost functions like a mirror, but I also get my art. So again, some people may hate that, but I actually love it. It kind of feels like dual purpose. So again, design a house that you love, make design choices that make you feel good. Don't worry about what everybody else is saying. Now, to make the living room feel cozier, which is in some dire need of some cozy, I've used furniture placement to help evoke that emotion before I can upgrade other things in the room. So this is not groundbreaking by any stretch, but I did use the couch to kind of close off the living room area. We also have a giant green rug coming in. That's going to bring some of those moody colors into our very neutral, very stale white living room space. It'll also help ground things. And oh my gosh, it's the right size. Our current gray, steely, cold gray rug is the wrong size, the wrong vibe. It's better than no rug, but it's pretty bad. So very excited to upgrade that. So that rug will allow us to use step 1, 2, and 3 of this framework by bringing in colors to help with that repetition, to bring in some texture and cozy into that space. And finally, lighting has got to be a part of your design plan. I think by now we all know that we don't use the big light, right? Right? Now, lighting is an entire video on its own, which I actually have created, so I will link it here. But to quickly show you what I mean, in the design process, I purposely moved my pot lights closer to the wall so they will bounce light off of the walls to create a bit of a glow when they're on versus that spotlight effect. Now, is it perfect? No. Do we use the overhead lights? No. But if I do need to use them, I know it's going to be a bit softer than if it was just in that normal grid format. The glass pendants I was talking about in the kitchen, they have that ribbed effect. They actually create quite a cool pattern on the ceiling when they're turned on. Again, this might not be for everybody, but I think it's quite cool and it adds some texture and interest to our space. And then at night, I have some task lighting over one of the chairs if I wanted to do some reading. I have a plant light that I've recently purchased that shines up the back behind our olive tree, and then we have our under cabinet lighting in our kitchen. So we have lots of different layers of lighting. This is by no means done, but as we're adding to our home to make it feel more cozy, lighting is the biggest design tool. Again, if you want more details, a video is linked below. So how do you use perception and depth in your own home? To create a cozy, calm space, lower that lighting, get that mood lighting, get that ambience going. Use soft, textured furniture and make sure you have throws and other things. Cluster furniture to make zones. And then typically you can choose those darker mid-tone colors that will evoke that more cocoon feeling. But again, feel free to break this one. I did. To create an open, airy, and calm space, keep sight lines clear. Don't block your windows with huge furniture. Try to keep furniture a bit low slung, as they say, so not super tall, super high. That will block your sight lines and make your room feel more enclosed. Add mirrors to increase perceived space, or just a giant piece of artwork that kind of does double duty. And again, you can choose lighter tones to create that open, airy feeling if that's your vibe. Or do as I did, mix and match a bunch of these in a different space to create little mini emotional zones depending on how you're going to use your room. Remember, that's the most important part. Start with the feeling you want your room to evoke. Now, this final step is the one that brings them all together. And without it, your room's still going to feel like something's a bit off. Step number 5, layering, the ecological structure of your room. So with your color palette chosen to evoke the emotions that you want in your room, and just enough repetition to make your brain feel safe, the keystone to this formula is layering. Think back to nature. Natural landscapes are built in layers. The canopy, the understory, shrubs, ground cover, leaf litter, all the tiny micro textures everywhere. That's why forests feel deep, dimensional, and safe. There's something happening at every level. Now, most builder basic homes don't have any of that. They're just flat floors and white walls, which is why most of the time it still feels flat even after you've decorated. Layers add depth, warmth, and visual hierarchy. You're missing even one of these layers. No amount of color repetition and texture is going to save your space. Your brain is still going to register that something is just off. So here's how to think of your room like a forest. The canopy, that's going to be your overhead lighting, your ceiling fixtures, your pendants. Your mid layer is going to be your furniture, your shelves, and your art. Your ground layer is going to be your rugs, your textiles, and your soft furnishings. Your micro textures are going to be your candles, your books, and your styling objects. Then, of course, my favorite, your light layers. Your task lighting, your ambient lighting, your mood lighting, you need to have each one. From experience, the two layers that most people struggle with most are the micro layers, so like your styling objects, and the lighting layers. And the lighting layers is most important because this is like your emotional regulator. So again, please, can we stop using the big light? Like, it's almost 2026. Or maybe it is when you're watching this. Like, come on, we're not using the big light in 2026, friends. We're not doing it. No. Again, if you want more help with lighting and how to avoid using the big light, I've made a full in-depth video on that I've linked below. But if you would like some more advice on the micro layer, your styling objects, and how to do that properly, let me know in the comments because that would be a fun video to make for you. Now, layering all of your design choices in the right way creates what psychologists call environmental richness. And it's a key biophilic design linked to well-being. And it's the final step that transforms your new build from flat and impersonal to a space that feels loved, cozy, and curated. Biophilic design is not a plant trend. It's a design psychology framework. It helps you create homes that feel calmer, healthier, and more human. And the best part? You can use every single one of these principles that we talked about today without owning a single plant. So now that you understand how to make your home feel calmer and more human using biophilic design, the next step is fixing everyday mistakes that are making your house feel cheaper than it should. Watch this next.